Greetings and salutations to all who have happened to have found this particular YouTube video. I know it's been a while since my last upload. I missed a week, and that's a real my bad. That's a real slap on my own wrist. I didn't mean to miss that week, obviously, but these things tend to happen a lot to me, personally, because I procrastinate a lot, and so I missed this week, or last week. But I'll try to do better again. I've noticed I've been missing a lot of uploads. That's not intentional. It's just me sucking a lot recently. My bad. That's for me to worry about and for you to ignore. But today we are talking about a manga / anime, like we always do. But today we are going to be talking about a series that's particularly near and dear to my heart. And the reason for that I'll talk about a little bit later on in the video. The title of this, in case you haven't already guessed through your super sleuthing skills, is called The Dragon Maid of Miss Kobayashi. Now, before we get started on any of the other things, as always, I'll do the quickest summary that I can possibly manage to all those who somehow found this video but haven't seen the show and don't know what it's about. So let me proceed to do that. Don't worry, I'll try to rip it off as fast as a band-aid. So the series follows an office lady by the name of Kobayashi, and I believe she's a software engineer or something like that. But anyway, she's had a long day at work, and she's decided to go out by herself and get absolute shit-faced to unwind. I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to that. And she accomplishes that goal, and she's on her way back, but misses her stop and winds up in the mountains. She decides in her drunken stupor to venture further into them. And in the mountains, she finds a dragon. Apparently it's dying, but Kobayashi is apparently able to save its life, which she does. The dragon reveals itself as apparently a female, and they are like talking and whatnot, and Miss Kobayashi, in the drunken stupor, offers the dragon to be her maid, because that's Kobayashi's kink apparently. And so she does that, and then she manages to find her way back home after that incident and falls asleep in her bed and completely forgets it all the next morning, at least until the dragon shows up at her front door to make due on our promise to be Kobayashi's maid. Now, I hope that was quick and painless enough for all your guys' short attention spans. But now it's time to move on to the actual talking bit of the where I actually talk about the show a little bit further. But let's talk about all the technical stuff first. I know I've never actually done a segment like this, but first time for everything, and honestly, I can do what I want and no one can really stop me. So, this was done in winter 2017 by Kyoto Animations. It had 13 episodes and 1 OVA. See, that was easy enough for all you guys to not doze off on. But it's time to move on to my little sob story regarding it. Yes, I kind of foreshadowed this segment earlier, where I said that this series is very near and dear to my heart. Now let me explain why that is, because I had an experience with this show, actually. So, traveling back in time to winter 2017, when this anime was airing, I had just gotten back from school, because I was still in school at this moment, and it was kind of a rough day, most days usually are. I was bored. I just kind of wanted something to dull my mind, like background noise for me to sit there and stare into the abyss. But I decided to look at the top 10 trending animes of that season, and Miss Kobayashi was, I think, 6th or 7th, and I decided to do that one, because why not? It looks like your typical slice of life moe blob. Cute girls do cute things, but kind of bland and a carbon cutout of some other show that's similar to it. So it lost all of its spark. And I saw that show. I was like, yep, that looks like a good thing to kill my mind to. And so I decided to watch that. And I was kind of also confused on why it was in the top 10 because, I know that most people don't really like the shows, and so I was like, well, with all my assumptions about it, it doesn't really make sense for it to be in the top 10 trending animes. Typically, like, 3 people will watch it and then tell everyone else not to watch it. But this one apparently managed to escape that, and I thought that everyone else was apparently just bored like me as well, and everyone decided to watch it simultaneously. I decided to watch it, and I was incredibly impressed with it. I thought that it was very vibrant, very colorful, very, like, unique in its own way. It looked like it was doing its own thing. Yeah, it had its typical stereotypes and tropes and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I felt like it was very itself. That really surprised me. It subverted my expectations. I thought it was going to be a very bland, very mediocre, very boring show, but quite to my contrary, it wasn't. It really piqued my interest, and whenever something manages to betray my expectations, which doesn't happen very often, it quickly becomes very dear to me. I can't really think of another example because, like I said, it's incredibly rare for something to do it. But whenever something subverts my expectations like this, it usually makes me, like, obsessed with it in a way. It's probably a common phenomenon, but, since it doesn't happen very often to me, it hits me a little bit harder than I think most people. That's my whole story with it and why I love the show quite dearly. And it's probably one of my favorites. I don't know if it is my favorite, but it's definitely up there. But now, let's talk about some of the aspects of the show. The animation is done by Kyoto Animations, which is, a very, very good animation studio. And so, when it has its colorful moments, as its very pretty moments, and, you're like, oh wow, it's so nice. I can't really say much about animation because I don't really specialize in any of it, but it is very good and very impressive for, just your slice of life anime. Another thing I want to bring up is that it is a slice of life anime, but it does, like, spring on to you some very dramatic moments. Sometimes it's just, like, very emotional moments, and then sometimes, like, oh wow, that wouldn't seem out of place in, like, an actual fantasy anime. But at the end of the day, it still reverts back to its slice of life origins because it likes to trick you into thinking that's not a slice of life and then slink back into its slice of life ways, like a tricky bastard. But it doesn't. Whenever these moments happen, it doesn't really feel like it just came out of nowhere and sidelined you from some non-Euclidean speeds. It feels right in a way. It brings its own uniqueness to it. And all the characters itself are very lovable. You don't really hate any of the characters. They're all lovable. They're all colorful, vibrant, quirky in their own little ways. But you guys probably already know that if you've seen the show. And now it's time for me to move on to some of the more cons regarding the show, because there are cons, and I'm going to say them right now, which is what this whole segment is. But all these cons are also probably going to be pretty subjective in a way, but I don't really think that this is a show that you can poke a whole lot of holes through because it is a slice of life. It doesn't do anything too extreme, and it's hard to mess it up. So it's difficult for it to be con, so pretty much every con you ever hear about a slice of life, it's probably just going to be subjective. But my own cons regarding the show, and maybe some of yours, is I could list off the more universal one, which is just the genre of slice of life in general. If you don't like slice of life, you're not going to like the show. Or maybe it'll be like, maybe it'll be an exception to that rule, but I wouldn't hold your breath on it. If you don't like slice of life, you're going to hate the show, because that's what this is. I've noticed that slice of life is a very hit or miss genre. People either hate it or they love it. There's not really any in between, and if there is, it's typically just leaning more towards one of the extremes, and not like just straight up in the middle. So that's the biggest con regarding the series, is the genre of slice of life, which isn't really targeted towards the show, but the show is subjected to that. Some of the more other problems with the show that I had is the thing that really drew me to the show was that on the particular website I was looking at, it labeled itself as a shoujo ai. And for all those that don't know what shoujo ai is, it's basically just a tamer yuri. And for all those that don't know what yuri is, it's a girl's love. And when you're watching that show, a lot of the cute girls do cute things type shows are shoujo ai or yuri. They're labeled as it on some website, obscured somewhere. But they also all lie, so, like, as it feels natural to them, because it's typically not shoujo ai. You'll basically only get like an aftertaste, like you can smell it coming from the coast, and like a slight whiff of yuri is followed by it. So pretty much nothing at all. Like, and Miss Kobayashi kind of suffers the same fate. Toru has one-sided feelings to Kobayashi. That's not a spoiler. They reveal it like 15 minutes into this first episode. But again, it's one of those, aftertaste things where you can taste it slightly after a hint of like mint or something. Or like if you squint your eyes and tilt your head a little bit, it kind of resembles yuri, but it's not. And this is even further from the whole yuri feel to it, due to the fact that Miss Kobayashi herself is painted in a rather androgynous way from every aspect of her, from the way she talks, from her interest to like her entire personality, even to her character design. She's a very androgynous character, which even further hurts the yuri genre of the show, which is questionable if it even existed to begin with. It's not really that's a big problem that she's androgynous. The big problem is the fact that I would really expect it to be yuri, so I didn't scratch that itch. But you might be wondering to yourself, is that a problem for you? It kind of is, because I've been hiding this for a while now, but I'm a really big fan of yuri. And now that I've said that's like a big burden off my chest, but I'm a really big fan of yuri. I was really expecting that show to scratch my itch, because there's not a whole lot of yuri animes, even a few are good ones. So I was expecting Kobayashi to be the one to really pull that off, but it didn't really. Now on to the final problem I had regarding the show. This is like basically like a complaint that might not even happen, but Toru, she doesn't have a lifespan. She can be killed through like unnatural ways, but she can't really be killed through old age. And Kobayashi, who is human, can. So what I'm terrified of is they're going to do one of those bullshit endings that I see happen so very, very, very often, where one of them dies and the other one lives on for the rest of eternity, forever, like being sad at their death. I fucking hate those endings so much. They're horrible. It's such a common thing as well in like light novels and manga and stuff. Not so much in anime, but in everything else. It happens all the damn time. And I hate those endings so much. They're probably my least favorite type of ending. Maybe not, but definitely top 3. They're horrible. I hate them. And it feels like it's steering that way. And I swear to God, if it does end that way, I'm gonna flip some table somewhere in this world. But yeah, again, this is a very subjective category that I'm doing because all these cons are very subjective. Even this one. Some people like this type of ending and some people just don't care. I care a lot and I hate these types of endings. But yeah, so this isn't really a problem for any of you maybe, but it's a problem for some of you and it's a problem for me. But it's not even like written in stone that this is the way they're going to end. Maybe they're going to make Kobayashi immortal somehow. But I wouldn't hold my breath. Anyways. I also kind of wanted to talk about the manga of this particular series. But I feel like this video is already long enough. And I don't want to make it like an hour-long video. So I'm probably going to talk about the manga in a separate video, or maybe in the sequel to this video, because the reason I'm doing this video on this series is due to like a celebration of sorts in respect to the second season that's airing in the early days of July. I think it's coming out on the 7th or 8th of July. However, I read somewhere that's coming out on the 1st, and I think they're lying to me. But maybe I'm the one that's wrong, and maybe it is coming out on the 1st. But I believe it's the 7th or 8th. So look out for that. And I'm probably going to do a separate video after the second season is finished airing to talk about that and see if it holds up to the first season. But it's kind of interesting because at the same time, I don't even know what's going to be in the second season. I read the manga, like I mentioned earlier, but the first season kind of jumped around in the manga, which it can get away with because it is a slice of life, and they can just like slide in some of the more daily life slice of bits and then slap in the dramatic moments they feel like they want to add in. So they can pretty much, the manga is pretty flexible in the way that they can adapt it. And so I have no idea what's actually going to be in the second season, despite the fact that I read the manga. It could be like that one chapter or that other chapter. It could be this chapter or it could be that chapter. I know looking at the cover, they're going to be introducing that new Chaos Dragon, which I'm really excited to see because that's actually one of my favorite arcs regarding the show, because it has arcs occasionally for some reason, which is a fairly unique concept in Slice of Life, but it does. And it's a pretty enjoyable experience all the way through. So if you haven't seen the series and you do like Slice of Life, I highly recommend you do so, because this is a must-watch in the Slice of Life genre, in my opinion. My very, very, very humble opinion. Alright. I think that's a wrap. I think we're done for today. I do hope that I will upload sooner next time, but only time will tell. And yeah, write a comment if you have anything you want to say. It motivates me if that's something you want to do. You can either correct something I've said or even just say like, hi, good job. I like your goggles, and I'll say thank you and then blush a little bit. Or you could like the video and, you know, further motivate me if that's something you want to do. Or you could do the big boy move and subscribe. Do whatever you want to do. I can't force you to do anything. I think that's going to be it for today. Yeah. I think I said everything I wanted to say. And for now, farewell.